of a St. Pete, kind of artistic, eclectic, gritty, artistic, as I said. And
Excellent.
yeah, it's come a long ways, man. When I first got here, my wife looked at me and said, no, this is not going to work. And it was the timing was perfect because Duke knew that they had to make improvements to Durham as well, right? Because Duke is in Durham. And so
Here's my hat.
they were handing it out. So
That's awesome. Hi, Peter. Here, I'll ask you to unmute.
hey, Peter.
And there we go. Peter, if you want to unmute yourself, and also, did you ask me for permission yet for recording? I think you need to ask me.
No, I will though. Here, let me see where request permission. Okay, I'm sending a request permission.
There we go. And you're all set.
Okay.
All right. So I say
this meeting is being recorded.
There we go. So Al, the floor is yours. I'm going to mute myself and everybody else and see you on the other side.
All right, Lynn, thank you very much. And Carrie, I think is possibly listening, but she's not with us tonight. And she's got some other business to take care of. And I know that we've got the vote on Thursday. So I don't want to take up a lot of your time today, but I do want to just hit on a couple of points, and then maybe we can open it up for a discussion or questions or whatever the case might be. First of all, as you know, way back when I did a kind of a line-by-line analysis on the development agreement for the redevelopment of the Trop site, not the stadium, but the development around it, which is kind of in my bailiwick. So I spent some time on that. My background, as most of you know, is public partnerships. I worked for 4 different cities, primarily negotiating public-private partnerships. Many of them, much like the Trop site, big projects, big money, and thank God, all of them did not look like the Ray's-Hines deal at all. They were much better negotiated, if I don't say so myself, and with great outcomes. As most of you know, I am not a fan of this agreement, never have been. Saw so many flaws in it that I couldn't stay quiet on behalf of the economic development community across the country. I think it's a horribly negotiated deal. I don't think it serves the city well at all. And I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to talk about the changes, some of the changes, because it's really not worth taking a lot of time on the changes, because in my opinion, the changes don't mean anything. They're insignificant compared to the bigger issues that are significant, but I will touch on some of them. And then I will just talk briefly about why I believe the 5 sold out council members are still supporting this deal. And there's only one explanation to it, because the deal is so bad and was negotiated so poorly by the mayor that there should be no question of their opposition to the deal. But because they're supporting it, I'm going to let you in on some things when I was there that led me to believe all this time that those 5 would support it, and especially the 3 that were, especially the 4 that were holdovers. Kind of knew where they were going all the time because of what happened at the end of the Kreisman administration. So I'll give you some insights on that, and then we'll open it up. On the changes side, on the stadium piece, which I have never focused on, but I just wanted to mention, there were two changes that caught my attention to the stadium deal. One was there was a change that said that they would use disadvantaged workers, 15% of the hours on the stadium would be dedicated to disadvantaged workers. So, some people might look at that and say, oh, that's great. I don't, because it's based on good faith effort. So all the developer has to do is a good faith effort, and they're off the hook. So they could do 3% and then come in and say, well, we couldn't do 15%, here's why. And they've got an administration that, basically supports anything they say. So it doesn't mean anything to me, a guy like me. The other piece, which maybe is in the article, Lynn, that you were talking about, the lead discussion also means nothing to me. They made changes in there, but it's all based on good faith as well. So as long as they say that they tried and they file maybe some documents that say, look, we looked at this and we looked at that, but we couldn't make it happen. Meaningless stuff without requirements and penalties. None of this stuff makes any sense. From my perspective, again, a guy I've probably negotiated 200 public-private partnerships in my career, and you just can't leave those things open. And when I was there, the community would have killed us if we did that. They would have furious with us. But this administration, they give a pass to. On the development side, they also made some changes. The council now has to approve if there's less than 600 affordable housing units on site, on the stadium site. The council now has to approve that, as opposed to the mayor approving it under the old agreement. So they did make that change. The same goes for any changes to the community benefits agreement. Apparently, they can add or subtract, or they could add and subtract from that package that's in the agreement if the mayor agreed to it. So now it's not just the mayor, the council has to agree to it as well. In the development, in terms of hiring workers and using local workers and local businesses, the agreement now says that they need to focus on the CRA boundary and people within that boundary. Again, to a guy like me, this means nothing. There's no requirement. These are goals, good faith efforts, quote unquote, which means nothing. There's some language in there about some additional meetings, community outreach. I don't say that that's bad, but to an economic development guy, means very little. It's what's in the deal. Open space, wow, what a whopper of a change this was. They went from 10 acres to 12 acres. They added 2 more acres of green space as a requirement. Again, the Midtown deal had close to 25 acres of green space. And in a city like St. Petersburg, shame on this administration for not living up to the legacy of St. Petersburg in terms of parks and green space. After all, that's what made our downtown many, many years ago. And then, I wish I could be more positive, but I mean, there was a daycare requirement of 2,500 square feet, and there's a grocery store requirement of 10,000 square feet. It's just it amazes me. And the time frame on that, I can't remember exactly, but the time frame is not right away. It's not. I don't even think it's in 10 years. I think it's like 10 or 20 or 30. I mean, those are not required right away, and they are also the the delay language, the excusable delay language in the agreement, like it is with everything, is applicable to this as well. So, I mean, the one thing I think about all the time is this dichotomy that in this agreement, and it just shows how the raise just rolled over the city. And I hate to say that because, I'm very proud of being a city employee at one time, and love most of the people that work for the city. But for the city to separate the requirements of the stadium, which are required right away, right? They're going to build the stadium right away, and they build it over 4 years. And the city has to spend $142 million of infrastructure money right away, in addition to, and Peter, you know this better than I do, but in addition to giving up about $800 million in value for the land. So that's almost $1 billion of giveaways. And they get nothing in return of private development, nothing. But the stadium rolls. The stadium gets done right away within what, 3 years, 4 years, something to that effect. That's how skewed this deal is. And you guys have heard me say that before. Now, this is very interesting. The last one that I'll talk about, because again, I just don't see any of these as important. They're all window dressing. They're all so that they can say they did something because this council member said something about it, or that council member said something about it. So they threw these things in to make it look like they're responding to the community or responding to the council. Now one thing that they did that was interesting to me, and I had to look at it a couple times, is they are now requiring 400,000 square feet of vertical construction by December 31st, 2030. And I said to myself, well, now that's interesting, because we require, that's in addition to the 10 years and the 20-year and the 30-year minimum requirements, I believe. What's interesting about that is that we required Midtown to do exactly 400,000 square feet right away in our agreement with them. They had to do 400,000 square feet of development. And I said, oh, okay. But then I thought about it. The Midtown agreement did not include any stadium at the time. And I'm going to go back on that and explain how the Christman administration was dealing with this project, and why all of that is to say that the way the Christman administration was doing it was so that we wouldn't get taken to the shed like this deal is. We thought this through. We knew that the Rays would be asking for this deal. We want everything. Give us everything, and then we'll stay. So we wanted to leverage that and make it so that we had strength negotiating by doing an RFP that they could have responded to, but they chose not to. They chose not to, even though the mayor asked them many times, please respond. And of course, the new mayor comes in, Mayor Welsh, does a new RFP. Why? Because you have to by law. You have to. It's a CRA district. You have to do an RFP. You can't just say to the Rays, okay, we'll do this with you. So we did an RFP that was open to them, completely open to them. They never responded. So we couldn't select them. So we selected another developer who we think would have done a fantastic job. And it also put us in a position to negotiate with the Rays from strength. We wanted the Rays to do a stadium, but we weren't going to give them $1 billion of free land and infrastructure. And we knew that they would ask for that. So to me, the business approach by those three council members in particular, Montanari, Gabbard, and Driscoll, was vacant. They completely surrendered the city's position to the Rays, and then Welsh surrendered at the negotiating table and came back with junk that the council members sold out on a long time ago. Why? Because they hated what we were doing. The Rays were meeting with them in secret and telling them all these bad things about Christ, right? That you can't give it to the Rays. And they basically sold out. And they sold out that early. It was at the end of the Kreisman administration. So when they went into the new RFP, they had no leverage whatsoever. From my perspective. Now, let me mention a couple other things here. I just want to mention what has not been changed. And Peter, please jump in, or anybody else that wants to jump in on this. I'm just going to list the items that jump out to me on the development side. So anybody else wants to mention this, but there are 8 or 10 items that should have been changed to make this deal somewhat acceptable, but they didn't. First of all, in the early going, Welsh indicated that the city was going to borrow 280 million. And of course, we all know that that's 700 million. As the infrastructure and the stadium expense. So that was not the truth, right? They tried to make that look lower than it really was. Home Run did a great job quickly with their talent. They analyzed the true borrowing necessary for that deal, and then No Home Run really pointed out all of the investments that the city has to make that will now be at risk, that may not occur. As I mentioned before, the city is giving away the land value of about 800 million, and they're spending 142 million in infrastructure. So that's 942 million of giveaways. And you know what they get back for that? The only thing that is in the agreement that is a requirement that they will get back, and I even hedge on that because they've got so many outs, but one could say that they get back $50 million in return, because they have to buy $50 million worth of land in the first, I think it's the first 12 years. I mean, unbelievable. I couldn't make this stuff up if I was sitting in a class trying to present the worst deal I've ever seen to the students. So they get back 50 million. And it's even worse than that, though. All they have to do is pay for it. They don't even have to develop it. They have to develop 33% of the minimum requirements by year 10. 33% of the minimum requirements in year 10. So how could a public official possibly support such, I'm going to edit my words, such garbage? The only way is they sold out a long time ago. It's the only way. there's no rationality that in my mind can be applied. Price for infrastructure, which is a sin, that should be paid by the raised Hines, and paying for all community benefits. Everybody's running around saying, oh, raised Hines is paying 50 million for community benefits. No, they're not. The city reduced the land by $800 million. So, I mean, do the math. So can you believe that the sold out 5 is allowing that to happen? I just can't. Again, the time that I was there, those 3 council members would have grilled me to death if I came to them with any of this. So that they had to sell out to the raise. And they're doing it for money, for political reasons, for their next election, but not because they want to be advocates of the taxpayer. The city has surrendered all rights to the real estate development, all revenue rights to the real estate development and stadium. All revenue streams go to the developer or to the raise, including naming rights. Another sin. The city has secured no guarantees on the development. The language on excusable development delays, I've pointed out before, is horrible. It basically lets the raised Hines get out of any commitments. However, and I've said this before, those same excusable development delays do not exist for the city's $140 million infrastructure giveaway. So the city's got to pay for all of that without any questions. They can't get out no matter what. There is no excusable delays. There's no reasons why they cannot do it. They have to do it. And the developer can just sit back and say, thank you. And then we'll go in and develop when we think it's right. And then that excusable development delays language is so ridiculous. They can get out of anything at any time. It talks about national trends, and I've never seen anything like it. The whole affordable housing requirements have not been changed and can easily be bought off with flimsy penalties. We've been talking about that a lot. We know that the affordable housing provisions are not backed. It's ridiculous. Shocked that Gabbert is supporting that. She's been talking about affordable housing for quite some time. Local small business participation rates are a meager 10%, as I said before. Can you believe Fig Sanders is letting this happen? Can you believe it? I mean, Fig Sanders would have thrown me out on my ear if I came back with 10% as a goal, not even a requirement. Open space, I talked about. 12 acres is absurd as well and is shameful. Termination provisions that we've talked about many times have stayed the same. So can you just imagine this? So Raise Hines comes in, and let's say they buy all the land up, every piece of it. And let's say in year 10, they don't meet the 33% requirement for minimum development. And they say, well, too bad, we're bad. The market wasn't good, blah, blah, blah. The sad thing about that is that the termination agreement says that the agreement doesn't get terminated for any land that they've already bought. So they get to hold on to that land and do what they want with that land, and it can't be terminated or taken away or taken back. They own it, they control it, they do what they want. That's how bad this deal is, in my opinion. In my opinion. Okay, and the last thing is, as I said before, the Rays Hines control what they develop, when they develop, and on what parcels they develop. The city surrenders its say over the best development site in the country. Can you believe the sold out 5 are letting this happen? It's just astounding. Okay, now I just want to mention a couple other things, and let me just check the time. Okay, yeah. And then we open it up. I want to mention a couple of meetings that took place. I guess I got the sun on me here. When I was there, that makes me believe that those 3 council members, again, Montanari, Gebert, and Driscoll, sold out a long time ago with their actions, because they didn't support the Midtown deal. They didn't know what we were doing. They didn't understand that we were trying to put something in place that was good for the city, driven by the city, and then we could negotiate with the Rays so that the Rays didn't have the type of deal that I just explained. Because we knew the deal that they wanted. This is the deal that they've wanted for 25 years from the former mayors that I talked to. And it's funny because I'll never forget the press conference when they announced this deal. Mayor Welsh said, yeah, I bet you all those former mayors, are really happy about this deal and, glad that this is moving forward. No, they all think it's terrible, and they all think that it was poorly negotiated. That's what they think. And most of them, if not all of them, oppose the deal because they know how bad it is. But I remember a meeting with Mayor Welsh before he took over, and we talked about this project. And I remember Mayor Welsh saying that on the campaign trail, he did not hear of any significant or any support for the Rays while he was campaigning. I remember him saying that. And I remember him saying, that's not going to be his focus. I was there. The second meeting that I want to mention is that I had a meeting with the Rays. This was the most bizarre meeting I think I've ever had, at least in St. Pete. The mayor sent me over to meet with them. This was maybe a couple of weeks out before the responses to our RFP were due. And the Rays said to me at that meeting, in so many words, throw away your RFP, don't take the proposals. We want to do it. Here's where the stadium will be. It's now the same spot that they're talking about. And we would like control of the land. And I said, well, you want control of the land around the stadium? And they said, no, not just around the stadium. We want all of it. I said, do you want the land west of Booker Creek as well? Because we've got developers coming in with proposals. And they said, yes, we want it all. Because we think we think we need to control it all if we're going to have the stadium there. A couple of days later, that's when Mayor Kreisman did his press conference where he blasted the Rays for not responding to the RFP, not having any discussions with us leading up to the conclusion of the RFP, and then putting such an absurd proposal on the table at the last minute. At the same time, or shortly thereafter, is when the Rays went to the council members, had secret meetings with these council members, these three in particular, for the council members to come on their side and kill the Midtown deal. And it was pretty open because they did a press conference. I mean, this isn't anything that wasn't in the public. They did a press conference with the Chamber of Commerce, who was completely behind them because they get so much money for their organization from the raise. And they did a press conference basically saying they didn't want to move forward with Midtown and we should just, do a deal with the raise. And that was way before Mayor Welsh got elected, but Mayor Welsh, obviously, they went to Mayor Welsh and convinced him that he could do just about any deal he wanted, and they would support it. Because how do you come back with this deal if you don't know as a mayor that you've got your back covered by three important members of the council, and then you know that you've got two others that are probably shortly behind them once they come in. And I say with Fig Sanders, there would have been no way that she would have supported this deal when we were there. There's no way. So, she met with the Rays. The Rays are supporting her in her campaign, and she needs it, right? She's in a tough race, is what I'm told, and probably could very well lose, is what I'm told. So she apparently cut her deal. And then, you had Councilmember Gertis come in and you've seen his explanations, but none of them, maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe you all can tell me I'm wrong on this. I have never seen anybody dispute the elements that I just talked about, why this deal is so bad. I have never heard anybody address these issues. The mayor has never explained why he's doing what he's doing. And I've never heard the council ask him that. They'll ask him about LEED, and they'll ask him about, Booker Creek, is it going to look nice? And, they'll ask him some engineering questions and, what's this going to be? And then what's that going to be? Never once did Mayor Welsh or the council members address these major issues. And all they have to address is why. Why are you doing this? Why did you cave so badly? So I appreciate your time. I thank you for listening to my perspective as an economic developer that's done this for 40 some years, and to go negotiated a lot. If they're not world class, they're close to it. They're at least national class. Some of the things that we did in Durham and in some of the other cities. So is what's going to end this. And I know everybody's like, oh my God, DeLisle. is if and only if Raise Hines wants to do it, right? If they make it a really special place and do some development, it's all in their power, because the city has given them that say, and nothing is required, but because of the St. Pete market, I'm not saying that they won't do it. It's possible that they may do development and make it work. But if I was a betting man, I would say, as I said earlier, that the reason why the Rays don't want to have to do anything until
refrigerator has some chicken and vegetables in it.
Dick, it sounds like a good meal. I think for 10 years, so they can just sit back and do what they always do, which is wait and see. And pick and choose. And I hate to see the city put in that position. That's what bothers me the most. So
Awesome. I asked everybody to unmute, which is why we had a little disturbance there. Everybody's gone back on, but you have the power now to unmute yourself or mute as required. We have a question from Tom about talking, if you would talk about the appraisal, somebody, either you, Al, or Peter.
I think I'll defer to Peter on that. He knows it better than I do.
Okay, the appraisal, appraisals are science, and the best appraisal that I have seen that is identified was appraisal done for the police station, and the police station was torn down and turned into a developable lot. Its 2.0 came in at $29 million. Or $14 million per acre. So that's the number, and that in turn was based on 5. So that's where the $14 million that I have been using as an appraisal number come from. Now, as far as the acreage, as land surveyor, I've done a lot of development work, and it works out so that there's 65 developable acres. That is after the roads, the 12 acres of green places, green space is taken out, after Booker Creek is taken out, after all that stuff is taken out, the actual physical land on which you can build is 65 acres. So you multiply $65 million is the current value of the land. Now, what the deal is that $910 million an acre for their lot spread over 30 years. So this is like offering to sell your house today to someone who may or may not buy it 30 years out, and you're going to sell it to them at the price. Complete craziness. Terrible deal. Alan's explained a lot of I got somebody an iPhone. Everybody happy with it. Appraisal and where the appraisal number came from.
Yeah, Peter, I have a note here from Robin. The county TIF contribution was about 16 million. Now the number is 105 million. Also, did the city issue new financial charts in June? She doesn't see them in the cow package. And that may not be answerable, but.
Okay. I don't know how to answer that question. I don't really understand the question, but the county was dollars towards the stadium, and that money was going to come out of TIF. So they currently have a TIF balance of about $67 million. So they'll simply turn over that $67 million, and then they won't have to borrow that as part of their $300 million. And they also have some other sources of TIF money. So they think they're going to borrow less than, they think that the actual less than $312 million. Robin, I don't know if that answered your question or
Yeah.
what.
Thanks. I'm just, in the original package, there was a chart which was showing debt service and what the source of the debt service was. And there was a column for county TIF that added up to about 60 million. There was a column for city TIF, and then the total was the 740 million. County's contribution, not bed tax, but it's 105. So I'm just trying to sort that out and understand what happened. If anybody knows.
Yeah,
And-
I actually have that chart up on my screen right now. I could share it with everybody, but it's a complex chart. And I think,
And my other question is, were those charts updated in the June package? Because I can't find them in the June COW package. So how did,
it was primarily lower the interest rate on the, that was going to be paid on the bonds.
okay, so there's a new debt
Yeah,
service chart.
I think it turns
basically?
out to
I
be
see.
$690 million rather than the 705 million that was on the first chart.
Okay.
That's a
Thanks.
question back on the appraisal. I'm just wondering, I'm totally for it. But do we have is there any way to get a council person to say, I'm not voting for this without a new appraisal? Or anybody to say anything like that? We all agree it's
Well, I think it's, Dick, I think it's a lawsuit. I think, I think the vote's going to be done soon. I think if they vote for it, and it does look like they're going to vote for it, they will vote it based on a improper appraisal, as far as I'm concerned, and that you would charge them with a derelict of what would you call it? Al, maybe you can help me out here.
They're not following their oath to the city.
Yeah, lack of financial,
yeah.
lack of financial, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have to wait for a lawsuit. Nobody sees a council person that we could get to say, I will not vote for this without. a new
No, I
appraisal."
met with Gertis and I had a phone conversation with Floyd, with Hainwicks, and I met with Sanders. Sanders is all about the Woodson Museum. That's it in a nutshell. I know her son.
Rosetta Ritchie would
Yeah, her
be
son.
my candidates.
Oh, for sure into the deal if it wasn't for the outrageous amount that the city had to come up with. He was definitely on board with that. Gertis was talking out of both sides of his mouth, and it's all about baseball for him, and he's not going to roll over for anybody. I tried to talk with Gabbard because she's a realtor. She made it all the way up to the state level with her politics. And again, just based on the level of contract, the fact that it's based no money up front, I was appalled that she would, based on her background and the ethics that is supposed to go with her background, let that pass. So I was not able to find her. I even stopped at her house personally to see if I could, catch her there, and she wasn't there. So as far as the appraisal, definitely, but I also think we should seriously consider, and I know Brad is on board with this, with dealing with ethical charges to the state. I think there's a lot of valid causes for that. I've been asking for a long time, is there any other legal or judicial process that we could employ to stop or overturn this? And this is not considering the SPLC's potential lawsuit should this go affirmatively.
I'm anxious to find out how to stop this. One of the ways to stop them is legal. The question on, I don't see the SPLC, or how do people see them putting in the lawsuit, or do we need some citizens to sue and they will support
can
them?
answer
Does
that,
anybody know
because I've
how that works?
They have plaintiffs.
Please.
They don't need us to be plaintiffs. And they, yes,
Okay.
and
They're
they're
set to roll with it.
representing Faith in Florida and another group, which I can't recall their name.
Is
So no,
is
they
there-
have plaintiffs.
Is their process and those plaintiffs very strong in their positions? Do we know that?
or they wouldn't have filed that letter, but I,
What-
I
what-
don't-
And what I,
But so,
just one more thing on that, I would certainly say that if we have other avenues with other parties to go forward with additional, suit, let it just become, a major production.
Well,
my
the problem
experience
is
with
the
other
cost.
cities,
Go ahead, Dick.
with other cities, my son-in-law's in this business.
Mhm.
They usually help two citizens do this. It's a couple citizens that do it. I don't know anything past that, particularly what it put in a lawsuit. I think it costs you an awful lot to run one.
Is there anything process? Particularly all these council people take oaths that they have to serve. And I was trying to find a copy of that oath so I can, look at the details of the verbiage. But if there was any way that we could bring in the state on whatever, in whatever department, that certainly would put, how do I put this? Just put the cost at either, put it all on the state's back to bear the burden of pursuing charges on whatever level. Again, food for thought at this.
One other food for thought on lawsuits is, it appears to me, and I don't get much traction on this, so I'd love to find some way to do it, is that this $30 million in the In-Town West CRA to quote, raising TIF money that comes from the in-town CRA, and they're spending it about 30 to 50 million dollars of it on the not in a CRA. I think that's highly suspect, if not it's simply illegal.
For maybe fraud, embezzlement, just
It
depending on the
says in the
terminology.
CRA documents and the table 2 that this money is used only in the in-town at 18th west of 16th Street. That's the
16th.
in-town West CRA. I don't see, and Alan, I wonder if you had an opinion. I don't see how one CRA can spend money in another, blight in another CRA, but I think.
Yeah, Dick, you're right. I mean, there's no way you could spend money from one CRA anywhere other than within the CRA that the money is generated is in the in-town CRA.
It is. However, west of 18th Street is in town west. That gas plant phases A and D. A is probably 10 million. D is mostly residents and hotels, and it is west of 18th Street. And please help me and somebody to believe that that's not possible.
And that's
What's the plan to finance those? Because it is nothing is in the in-town where.
but that isn't, what you're talking about is in the trop site.
It's in the gas plant site.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Phase A and Phase B are mostly in-town CRA, except in Phase A is in C, I think. It's in in-town west.
And if you looked at the map of the infrastructure,
Yeah, those charts are very clear in the presentations and in the agreement.
right.
Just
Those are
and So in-owned stadium development overlaps two CRAs, in-town and in-town west. And there is no cooperative agreement between those two. There's no inter-agreement. There's nothing in the in-town west that says anything about it. And 30 or 40 million is going there, right? I'm going to try one more time to get a council person to say, isn't this illegal? But if you can do all the letter I've sent out, because I'm looking for something that would stop this.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, well, I think that should definitely be that. That's a new one for me. I never put that together. Let me mention one other thing too, and I mentioned it in my last communication to council and to all of you. When I was there, every time we did a deal, we had to produce a document that showed that the incentives that we were giving were less than the project. And we had to do the math and include it in the council package. And my attorney, when I was there, told me I had to do that on every agreement because it was required by the state.
So then is that a vulnerable place then if they did not follow the same procedure and it's still state requirement?
And I raise it, you know, because I'm unsure. You know, somebody would have to check that out. And every deal that we did, the return was greater than the incentive, so it was never a problem. But I just wanted to mention that because I think somebody should look into that as well. And I did mention it
Where
in
would
my
we
last
look
document.
to that? I know
did send it to the council.
you know, my phone conversation with her, my God, she was so frustrated, almost borderline angry at the way the things have developed. Of that, or do we have to go to a different source for that information?
And what is that document called, Alan?
I just know that I had to do the math every time that we did a deal. And because you had to prove that you were getting something more substantial than what you were giving. At least that was my recollection. Now, I don't know if it was state. I think it was state charter. I'm not sure. Council member to approach with that and have her look into it because she could call folks and see what they say.
May I interrupt to show you that if I can
That's cool.
share it? I got the chart right here on the CRAs. Would anybody like to see
Sure.
it?
Absolutely.
Can you see that?
There it is.
Is that share?
Okay.
Right? The
Yep.
in-town CRA ends right here. This is phase A, phase B, phase C, and phase D. Right? This is in the midtown, in-town west CRA. Right? All of this phase and a good little piece of A. Right? The other question I would have here, I've always had it, is that this is a $40 million infrastructure in phase A.
Mhm.
Right? Look how much of it is going to put the infrastructure for the traffic for the stadium. Right?
Mhm.
I think that ought to be in the stadium budget. This phase A is $40 million, right? Probably 30 of it here, 35 of it here, and 5 of it over here, and probably 20 million or so should be with the stadium, right? I believe they stuck it there because this is legal infrastructure for the gas plant, right? So when they need to, they include the city of the infrastructure. Standalone for the stadium would have to be paid by the race, or be paid by public, other than TIF funds. But you can see here that this is clearly another CRA, and I've read that CRA, and it has no mention of having any money for redevelopment of Tropicana Field. That's all over here. These taxpayers are paying for that. These taxpayers would benefit.
It's interesting, Dick. Now, let me think like an insider for a second. What was also always disingenuous about the deal is, you recall that they always had the city putting in 130 million for the infrastructure, and they had the developer listed as putting in 53.
Mhm.
Pretty much water under the bridge. I think I'm actually a pretty good advocate for sort of making the
So here's my point. My point is that if the developer has to pay for any infrastructure above the 130 million, which I think is very questionable. But if they do, they've included in the deal a provision that says that the taxpayers of this district will be charged a special assessment. And that will be counted as the developer's contribution.
That's correct. There's another thing you can add to that problem, and that is that the language in the interlocal agreement that says that if available from other funds in the CRA, left over from whatever we got, that can go to defray the developer's cost of infrastructure. Right? So they have an absolute open trap door with money coming in. The 75 million that's sitting that's already approved that really isn't directed anywhere. I suspect that will take the rate part of it. In addition to what you say, if they need more money, they'll just do an assessment on the tenants here to get it. Right?
And Dick, so here's my concluding thought on that. What they might then do is use that special assessment money to do the piece of the West CRA, so that they keep it separate from.
But please help me get somebody to ask the question so they at least have to answer it. Nobody's asked, right? The other thing that's floating around here that nobody answered, we've got 130 million in the interlocal agreement, and it's 142 worth of million of infrastructure. The 12 million that the city is going to fund is nowhere. So somebody could just ask the question, how is the 12 million for the lift station going to be handled? The answer may be that the utility is going to handle that all on their own, because they will get fees for what they lift. But nobody's asked and nobody's answered.
And Dick, I could be wrong about this, but I always assumed that the 12 million was getting rolled into their bond initiative.
It's not.
Oh,
It's 130.
Okay.
It's 130 plus 60 million of debt coverage.
Okay.
The bond issue is for 130, not 142. The charts all say 142, right? It says 130, 130, 130, 130.
Okay.
My point is to try to get people to say, that's a showstopper. Right? Well, it's certainly a showstopper until you fix it.
Lynn, can I share something on my screen for a minute with Dick?
Yeah, please do. Dick will undo his mute. You have permission. You don't need me.
Oh, okay. So I just want to show you something I found. Can you see this, Dick? This is on the county's commissioner's agenda. This is the notice that the city sent them about this changes to the TIF. But here, not
Correct.
not
That's correct.
the county, or they're telling the county that they're going to increase it. expenditure for the stadium project and historic gas plant infrastructure. But there's nothing in there about
That,
in-town
that's my,
west.
you've just made my point. Thank you. There's a bunch of work going on here in Midtown West with in-town CRA TIF money agreement.
So are we sure that the in-town community redevelopment area CRA doesn't include in-town west?
Absolutely. There's a separate CRA and there's a separate strategy plan and TIF. And their TIF does not mention anything about infrastructure for the gas plant stadium. But you just
Okay,
saw
so
on my
this-
map that they're planning.
Right. That's what maybe I just saw this today and it triggered.
Right,
that.
good for you. And that's a nice
They're not-
backup here.
But the county's not voting on this. They're just being notified. But they've apparently been notified of the wrong thing. Is what you're
Is
saying.
There any,
Well, I'm just saying that nobody has any provision for the TIF money that's budgeted to be spent on infrastructure in town west, because it is the feeling of this reviewer, me, that it would not be legal for CRA in-town money to be spent in CRA in-town west.
So maybe we don't say anything about this and just let them act. I mean, when's the city's going to vote on this on the 18th,
Thursday?
it says. Thursday, yeah.
Well, they're going to formally vote on it. Let's put it that way. I mean,
Okay.
it's the vote, their vote, as Alan has said, is already in.
Right, right. But it's interesting because then afterwards we can say,
You can sue them, I think. I think this is very good sue.
well, I mean, illegally. But I don't know. I'll bring this up to Southern Poverty. I'll let them know about this because they're looking at every opportunity here. So
Then
Please do, because I've tried to get to
And,
them and I haven't, and I would appreciate
it's
Robin
hard.
and Lynn, if you could bring this up to them as a
yeah,
possible stopper.
I'm not saying no.
And maybe they
all the ethical
get a different or a more
regulations,
aggressive
they're not
plaintiff.
serving truly the
Sure.
people of the city, the closed door meetings that have, you know, with the buyer. And so forth. I've seen back when I was young and
I'll
I used the
send this,
EEOC, the Equal Opportunity Commission, to sue. They taught me. They said, Mary, you throw the mud at everybody. You sue everybody and you include everything that you can. What will stick after that. So I would be all for some of these other issues along as well.
I have a question around this lawsuit issue. It seems to me that in one of our previous conversations, or maybe more than one of them, that the reading of this document, the DA, that even if we do period, am I remember that correctly? In other words, we can't stop them. We can stop them from doing new stuff, but until the suits get filed, and they've already started on their garages, right? They've already begun the process on several different levels here. And so even if we go through this, do we have the opportunity to really significantly, I mean, we can delay them, but can we stop it? And can we make it any better if we do?
On that one. I'm not sure. You could be right.
Yeah.
I hate to keep bringing things up, but has anybody tried to push there's an item that was going forward saying that the council needs their own independent legal review of these documents. They're a legal mess. They're legally improper. They're just wrong.
Well, Lizette wrote that op-ed. Did you see that?
Well, we need somebody who's willing to make a motion council person is willing to make a motion in council.
But
Well,
Ted, don't you think that, I mean, it's a 5-3, so
Yeah, exactly.
any motions by any
It's just gonna go that way, yeah.
are gonna get shot down.
I mean, I think Lizette's op-ed was pretty clear and
City
compelling.
administration has spent
Presentation.
$1.5 million reviewing this with a Chicago firm. I think the council would be afraid of spending another $1.5 million repeating that review. I'm not sure that would go anywhere.
I know that,
It's justified.
but when you're looking at billions in expense, $1 million is a nickel. But we agree with that. They don't. Take a motion. It's gonna lose 3 to 5.
I have not. I'm not aware of anyone who switched their mind.
I can't speak at council meetings because I'm away and I'm not a citizen anymore of St. Pete, but public comment about we've had, where's the action on having an appraisal? We're the seller.
That's in my
We
plan
have
for
no
sure.
appraisal.
I plan to do that.
Terrific.
There are
Thank you, Lynn.
I will perhaps do the same, but that's
Yeah.
that's
You know,
my.
at this point, I mean, my stance on speaking, I tried, most everybody left the last meeting of last week, and I chose to come from a high road statement to the council people to see if I can jar their conscience and their hearts. And this time around, I have no problem with calling out each and every member that I spoke to that, you know, display, because at this point, short of cajoling anybody, they're so blinded by their personal interests in whatever that happens to be, that I just don't see them moving for any of us at this point.
I've tried to get to the council in 3 minutes. Your 3-minute time limit is very, very short. You cannot get a chance to say you could not interact with council people in
You,
3
you
minutes.
Peter, you learn to talk real fast. Be bullet point about it. So yes, no, I know what you mean. The very first time I talked last year in front of council, I was like, definitely with you there.
Just a question out of interest, out of ignorance, and that is, I know there's a half hour before, during the beginning of the meeting. Is there also time at the end of the meeting? I had to leave before
Yes.
9 o'clock last
There
time.
is.
And what
Correct.
most everybody had is encourage people to come a little late and because there's unlimited time at the end. We could have 100 speakers there, couldn't we?
No, they say 30 minutes in the front and 30 minutes in the back side.
But the last meeting, I bet 30 minutes wasn't used in the back.
That's
was it?
correct. Because most
So
everybody,
we really need to,
yeah.
we need to fill it, we need to fill it up in the back as well.
Isn't there a meeting on Tuesday? Am I right about that?
Yes, there's a cow on Tuesday. It's
Tomorrow.
all day.
Yeah.
It starts at 9 o'clock and it'll be televised. so
I think it's
Sunday,
actually 2 days. I think
Today?
it's Tuesday and runs over a Wednesday morning or
Oh,
something.
really?
I think one is the stadium. I looked up this. One is the stadium and
Yeah.
one
Is there, are there any speakers on Tuesday? If it's a cow, there's no speaker.
There are
Cow is
cows.
strictly
So
committee
Tuesdays-
only.
Tuesday's
public.
cow and no speakers. Thursday, there's
Right.
speakers. Is that
Yeah,
right?
I believe that's right.
Okay. The other thing I just want to mention is the county commission of 5 people, they can give their time to one speaker, and I think they can have 10
I
minutes.
will tell you, I did ask that question of Lisette when I was speaking with her, because I had the same idea. And she
Yes,
and she
why?
said, no,
You-
you
The county
cannot.
commissioners told me you can.
Wow, well, then we
That's
need to
their
find that in
policy.
writing
No, that's
somewhere.
it's on their
Well,
website, actually.
We need to definitely
Yeah, I
confirm that
checked the
then.
next meeting that to testify would be July 30th.
If we can
County.
show up at Thursday at 11 a.m., we should be able to get several people on open forum. And then when they have a public hearing on the stadium, you can fill out a yellow card and speak again. You just can't speak on the same topic. You would have to,
Right.
for open forum, you would have to talk about other needs that are not being met by the city. You have to find some way to talk twice. If you talk about the stadium, they won't let you talk in the public hearing.
But when the item comes up, there's unlimited number of speakers. Is that right, Tom?
That's what I think.
What's the plan and what's the opportunity to get, since we're losing with the council, let's move to the commissioners. How do we get them to say no?
I've been writing them regularly. I sent them a bunch of stuff today. I got a response only from Dave Vegger, who wrote me a lovely email, and I wrote her another one back, and I'm going to write them again tomorrow, and I'm going to send him the link to tonight. I'm going to send them all the link to tonight once
I think we should take advantage of this. I think it's 10 minutes or whatever it is, and put together. You even can send them a PowerPoint ahead of time, and they'll show it while you're speaking. I think we should put that. I think it's July 30th. I'm pretty sure.
They can ask for an appraisal.
They can ask for
They
anything
can
they want.
CRA money.
Right.
It might be a whole ballgame.
I mean, I understand they have to approve. There's in the package, there's this agreement between the city and the county right now. I started
Yes.
reading it. So there is an agreement, a draft agreement in the COW package. So you can see what they're going to approve, and it covers pretty much everything. So I would say they could ask for changes.
They have to prove all the same conditions that the city does that.
I'm not sure. It's
No,
all.
I mean, they have, you know, they have such a cleaner deal, and a simpler deal. Let me just mention this, Dick, like, and you made me think it through a little bit. My initial reaction is, you know, they have nothing to do with the real estate, even though it's in a CRA. It's owned by the city, and either the city loses that money or they make that money, but the county doesn't get anything because that doesn't go into the CRA. So I think here's my take on it. The county said, hey, you know, we'll put in the tax, the tourism tax money, and the rest of this deal is up to you, city. And the city bellied up and did what they did, and the county said, well, if you're going to do that, that's up to you.
But Alan, I thought some of that CRA money does belong to the county. You're saying none of it belongs to the county ever.
Even though it's in the CRA, does not go into the CRA pot. It goes directly to the city.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know it's confusing, but now, and any projects that happen in a CRA, the county doesn't have any that you spoke of, the upfront agreement where they're willing to put money into the deal, into that pot, into the CRA pot. And then it's up to the city to comply with the provisions in the agreement.
The county does not sign off on the gas plant redevelopment agreement.
No,
We'll look at the signature page. Well,
No, I don't think that they have anything to do with the individual projects as long as they are in compliance with that master agreement that Robin mentioned earlier.
And
Now,
that the
if they're
city's
going,
telling them they're going to increase from 232 to 574 million.
yes, then they have to agree to that, which is what will be before that. And another example would be the 10 million additional dollars that they put into the inner harbor, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Not by the water that the city recently did.
The
The pier.
here,
Oh my God. Yeah. Thank you guys.
It's almost done now.
Here
Number 50.
from the county for that project. And so they had to approve the additional dollars, but not the project itself.
okay, so but right now, they're not telling the county the whole story. I guess they're telling them it's only going to affect the in-town redevelopment plan. They say west of 8th Street.
Right.
Correct. Now, but it would not be much of a concern to the county that